Spoke today.
500.
That's right.
Good morning. We are about to begin budget session 3. Unfortunately, the mayor is a bit under the weather this morning, but all others are present.
All right, then, we'll get started on 10-500. If everybody can find that. It's behind the tab, not in front of the tab.
Can you give the number again?
10-500, facilities management. Scott's going to be the only person today. Scott has several of these to go through. And he'll be hitting on the highlights and high points. If you have any questions like previously, just feel free to ask. So we'll turn it over to Scott. Have you got anything in there that's?
It's pretty standard. The only, we do have a replacement for a service vehicle. It's the old long bed, which we'll replace it with a long bed so we can haul lumber and stuff on it. The other biggest thing is just our contracted services, which covers a lot, all the town functions, all the building contracts, pest control, HVAC. Other than that, it's pretty standard. We didn't really went up a little bit on repairs and maintenance to the facilities because everything, of course, is more expensive.
Scott, how often do we bid our service contracts?
It would depend on the contract. Some are annual, some are biannual, or is that right? Yes, biannual.
Okay, thank you.
So facilities maintenance just didn't have to do a whole lot this year, or you haven't yet.
Oh, we've done a lot, but
So I
we
mean,
do.
2,000 budgeted if you only spent 17.
Right. Well, springtime's an expensive time of year for us, so,
Just get paid.
right.
Like every other year, I'm sorry, every other year you get to your.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we've got something to handle when it comes up in the latter quarter.
The salaries and wages, I mean, I'm looking at the org chart from 545. Are any of those in utilities, or is that separate?
Separate.
Okay. How many people do you have in that?
Facilities, 2. And this
What's
will-
the availability of obtaining that vehicle? I know in the past we've had problems getting vehicles.
It's gotten better. This past year was pretty good. We've got a good contact at Capital Ford that seems to do us real well. But it's not like it was 2 years ago when we couldn't even find anything.
Scott, following up on Terry's question, I'm looking at the janitorial services. It seems to be a rather large contract. Is that bid annually? That's $77,000.
It was bid annually with an option to renew for a year.
That was last year.
Yeah. Been satisfied with them so far. So took a little bit first few months, but when we got to where everybody's happy with them.
Scott, do you normally have a good number of folks who bid on contracts, or do we consistently just get one vendor who is the only submitter?
It's pretty localized, so we don't get a lot because they're not huge contracts.
Okay.
So how about HVAC service? Do we see that in here, or is that in a different?
It's in there. It's more of a as needed. We have a service contract where they'll come in and just make sure everything's okay, but then, of course, we have the breakdowns and repairs. And
Is that line item here?
It's in the, it's kind of double. It's in the contracted services, and there also is, we use some in repair and maintenance, depending on cost and what it's doing.
Scott, does the HVAC contract, I heard you say they come out and do a regular inspection, do we have a PM program set up for all our HVAC on a monthly basis?
Yes, it's usually on a quarterly basis. They'll come out and check everything.
Change filters and
Yeah,
that kind of thing?
and we do some of the filter changing in-house too, so we don't get behind, especially on like dehumidifiers, things like that.
But that has not been bid out recently, correct? The HVAC services, do we have a, as far as you know?
It's annual, but it hasn't changed, and since I've been here, it's been the same company.
For a while, we had one company, then we switched to another company, and now we're on another company.
I'm sorry?
Now we're on our third company. We sort of rotated around locally,
Okay.
but we haven't bid it out, no.
They've held their prices too for the service, so
I'm sorry?
they've held their prices on the service contract.
Who do we use currently?
Mansfield. They're very responsive, so, I mean, we can get them out the same day on things.
Which Mansfield? Red trucks or white trucks?
Red truck. Is that right? White truck, I'm sorry.
They're the white
truck.
White truck, got it.
I will note, the last time we voted on that contract, Sheila did recuse herself. She did not vote.
Mr. Kelly, are we ready to move on?
Hey, whenever you're stopped, we're moving. Scott's next one will be 540?
545.
545,
Yeah.
sorry.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
This is admin, this is just myself and my Canet. Really the only big expense in here you'll see is for our maintenance on our ecosystem, which is our fuel system. They maintain the fueling area, plus it's our work order system to track repairs and maintenance of vehicles, so we'll have the cost. And that's done. It also will trigger their service when they get gas, they have to put in their mileage, and it'll send fleet a message when they get to their service spot. So we'll know to schedule it for service. It's also up to the operator, but that's our fallback.
Could we pause for a second? I recall in prior budgets, Mr. Kelly, there was a discussion about the longevity of the fuel station.
We're getting to that.
You're going to come to that, because that's a critical infrastructure need.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All in good time.
Yes, sir.
It's in one of these.
It's in one of the budgets.
So, Scott, given the many tasks that you are faced with daily, are you comfortable with this staffing level?
I am. I mean, it's certainly not an 8-hour-a-day job, it's a lot more than that, but I don't want too many levels between myself and what's happening, because I need to stay involved in everything.
Well, I would argue the important principle here is that you're right-sized staffing-wise, and if you're comfortable, there you are.
Now, we're busy, no doubt about that, but that's how it should be. Maybe in the future, when we grow a little bit, that would have to change, but I'm comfortable right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott, on page 2, under vehicle supplies, Notice you're a good bit over the budget for this year, but you only increased your request by $300. You think that's gonna, was there something unusual that happened
Yes,
this year?
what it was, we had, we replaced the truck I drive last year, and it didn't, the old truck was transferred to the street maintenance division, which was all preset, but it didn't get changed out of the system, so for a little over 2 months, we were double, I was paying for both of those when the second one should have been in street maintenance. So we've straightened that out now, so we should be good.
Scott, repair and maintenance on vehicles is zero. Is that because we're doing the work, a lot of that work in-house?
Yes.
All that work in-house?
Most of it, there's some we have to contract out. So.
Great job, thank you.
Now, there's, excuse me, there's two different lines. The repair and maintenance of vehicles, 4130, is an old line that was used, and everything was transferred to the other line item at the end of 2021. But everybody wanted to see a 5-year projection, so we showed it, even though all funds now come out of the other line item. So that's why you see the zeros, Bob.
Where's that other line?
Yeah, where you showing that, David?
The one that Terry asked about just a second ago, vehicle supplies. So everything now is in vehicle supplies. And where vehicle repair and maintenance, that line item went away, but we show it just because you wanted to see the
Okay.
years.
So you really haven't had any catastrophes.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, nothing is crazy, no crazy expense.
Correct.
Scott, your team, the folks who are doing the maintenance on the vehicles, do they just handle your vehicles, or are they handling
No,
all?
the whole town.
All the town vehicles?
Yes,
That's the next one we're getting to.
except for some of the fire trucks, they're specialized, so they have to get their own contractors to do that.
So if you want to go ahead and go to 550,
Let me ask one more question
Yes, ma'am.
before we go. Don't mean to put you on the spot, Scott, and so if you don't know the answer right off the top of your head, that's fine. How much of your time would you estimate that you spend doing what I would call project work? Writing RFPs, soliciting bids, managing outside contractors versus in-house work?
I would say outside is probably 25 to 30% at the most. And the rest would be all our inside work.
Okay, thank you.
all right, now 550?
Before we go there, Mr. Kelly, on the next to the last page, I'm very eager to talk about the tanks. I'm looking at a $10,000 maintenance storage system tank.
And 5,
I'm still in
60,
45.
Page
545.
Page 3.
yes.
Maintenance.
That's
just maintenance.
That's just the maintenance for the software that he talked about.
Right, the
when he started.
ecosystem that manages our system.
Where we're doing 550?
Yes, sir. Now you'll see what you've asked about.
490,000.
Yes, that is the big item is replacement of our fuel depot. The diesel is already down, and we've had them come out and look at it, and it would have probably been more expensive to repair it than replace it. And once we dug into it, we really don't know how far we would have had to go on with that, so the recommendation was a total replacement. And we'll be going with an above-ground system, so the state prefers those. Their inspections, we have to get inspected every year on our system, and above grounds triggers less inspections. Now, this is the cost to replace it. It's also adding a DEF tank, which is the new green diesel cleanser that we have to use. Right now, we're just getting it out of 55-gallon drums, this will have me be able to track it and make sure that people are using it properly. The only X factor in this whole thing will be the contaminated soil, because the state did tell us we could not leave the tanks in ground. We would have to take them out. So how far that migrated, we don't know yet until we actually dig in it. Hopefully it's pretty small contained.
Here, two stages and two differing sets of potential cost factors. Right? One is the new fuel system itself. The other, as you remove the old, is mitigating potential environmental damage, and we don't have a number on that yet.
No,
That could be significant.
it could very well be, or it could be next to nothing, but
We don't know how much soil we're gonna have to take off site and get cleaned and then bring back.
So
Yeah,
that's going to be a free balance transfer at some point,
Find out.
because it could be,
Right, yeah.
Mark was saying, it could be quite expensive.
yeah, I went through this one time before in Fayetteville. It's a larger, we had eight pumps, so it's a much larger system, but we ended up probably spending about $250,000 on soil mitigation. Now, of course, it had to be trucked. We had to truck it to South Carolina, have it cooked and brought back on site. State hasn't told me I have to do that yet, so we'll see.
Are all the adjacent properties town-owned properties, or are we
Yes.
adjacent to, we're not
Yeah.
adjacent to any property?
But no,
It's right out here.
yeah, it's back behind it's really right behind the community center there.
What do you estimate the lifespan of the new system to be?
New system being above ground, everything's more visible, we can keep up on things, so we're probably 20, 25 years easily.
I have two quick questions. One, I'm assuming since it's going to be above ground, we have to provide some screening now, or is there a plan in this number to provide screening of the
It's-
fuel depot?
It's
I mean,
two-sided, the back side and then the
Right.
side that does the park.
Mhm.
The other side is the utilities guys. So we really don't even have an idea of how much space it's going to take up, because we also use that for storage, so some of that I have to go, and then we've got the old oil shed we'll have to tear down. So there'll be some prep work that we have to do in-house ahead of time.
But then we can evaluate screening
Sure.
once the project's completed.
yeah, we have chain link fence now with the little slats.
Right, yeah.
But we'll have to see what that looks like.
Yeah, maybe we get an upgrade or something on what that looks like. Second question is, I had proposed as a part of the whole Parks and Rec and Community Center effort to upgrade all of those facilities or create new facilities that we may consider moving Public Works out to the airport. How, does this make it easier to move the fuel now that it's going to be above ground versus if we would have had to move it if it was remained underground?
I would say if council's looking at that, then we should do that now. Just go ahead and move it.
That's the point. I don't even know if it's,
Years
I'm
ago-
open to moving Public Works. I don't know where we are, and we don't even have a firm on board yet to look at our needs for a community center and Parks and Rec facility. I mean, we could be another year away from having something in front of us to look at from a design perspective or a concept perspective. So I'm just I don't want to get ahead of the cart, but I want to understand, if there is a transition plan, do we talk about it now, or do we wait until a firm gives us back
Is there space?
feedback on the whole design and everything?
And before, we had Public Works and Public Utilities out there back in the 90s, and then everything was brought over here. That's always something for council to consider. If they're looking at that, then I would say the best thing to do is to move the fuel now out there instead of having to mitigate or do whatever. I don't think we'd have another mitigation, but never know. But if you're considering something like that, there's room out there now to put the fuel. And we already have solid waste and stormwater, and a lot of the staff's already working out of that facility.
Some operations.
So it doesn't hinder your staff's ability to refuel and those kinds of
No, I mean, it would add a little bit of time because of the travel time, but other than that, I mean, if we were situated out there as a department, then
Yeah.
it would be, wouldn't be negative impact.
Fuel up in the morning.
He probably only has maybe a third of his staff out there currently, and the rest of it's over here.
So would placing the fuel depot out there now increase this cost, or is it relative because it's still gonna be above ground, you still gotta do all the work?
I think it would be pretty similar. I don't believe there would be a big increase. There might be some, there may be some equipment that we could be reused, but I think it would be fairly similar.
Yeah.
You say out the airport, where is this land at the airport?
You ever been to the dump site?
Convenience site?
Right there.
Okay.
We would have to, you know, move things around, clear some land, all of that, to make things fit, but there's plenty of property out there.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's a better utilization of the land that we own out there at the airport versus, because then that would free up this site to either more capacity for staff or
Yeah, we could turn it-
employee parking or
Office space.
lots
Because,
of options.
If you turned it into employee park and everybody that parks in front of the building currently, on the basketball court side, would just park
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Then that would free up the basketball court parking lot.
Now, we'd have to investigate what the state will require us to do if we shut down that facility and don't rebuild it. So they may still require us to mitigate it out or,
I would suspect so.
Right.
Right. The soil mitigation would probably still be in the line
yeah,
item, but
because
Yes, sir.
they're aware now. Of course, we get annual inspections anyway, but they're aware of the condition of it and that we are looking to replace it, so.
Scott, is there room at the airport? Do you have capacity to, if you were to move operations over there?
Oh, yeah.
Personnel,
Yeah.
equipment?
With the facilities, a building, you already have enough?
The building would not handle us, no.
Okay,
It's
we'd have
pretty
to
well
build a new
maxed out.
building. That's the cost.
right, we'd have to build
Yeah.
a new public work
Okay.
building out there. But the land is there.
Yes.
So it's not a land issue, it's just, we have a building here that's maxed out. So you can expand this building, well, you could, but you just, exponentially expand the problem if you add on to this building. So a new building out near the airport gives you what he needs, gives him a little bit of room, he can better design, what he needs, how it works. We're just so crammed in over here.
And we have a significant storage problem, particularly with clerk files and admin files that are required to be saved for so many years. That would give us the opportunity to
Right, because
build it
they're
right
out
in.
there also, but the room is maxed out, it's full, and it's not humidity controlled. So that's always an issue when it comes to the records.
So even outside of
I like it.
community center and rec center, this is something that we could look into or make a decision on that would not be dependent upon the overall, redo of recreation and community. So, I like the idea. Obviously, I'm a fan, but
I like it as well. I think if we're being strategic and thinking long-term, now is a good time to start looking in that direction. And it's not uncommon for municipalities and large entities like universities to get their operations out of the center of campus, if you will, and better utilize that land for their
I guess one advantage would be when we do our hurricane prep, a lot of our equipment goes out there anyway to keep it safe off the island, so.
Kim Nix, she's in your building, but she's not part of, so you would have to
Yeah, that's Mark and Trey and that crowd, so.
Yeah. The operation part is on the other street, and that would be the first one that would go. And then, office-wise for Scott and them, he may look at keeping them available on the island, just for people to be able to see them and interact and those kind of things and connect.
Because we do get quite a few walk-ins. So.
So what I'm hearing is a multi-stage, multi-year, multi-million-dollar project. Is have to be done in phases. And that would require a commitment from not only this council, but councils going forward. Because he's removing the storage fuel facility out there, but really what you're doing is creating a new operations center off the island.
Yeah.
Buildings and manpower, and I am very concerned about the mitigation process for next door. I'm not so sure that we're just going to be able to move in there. I have a feeling that we're going to be tied up with the environmental people for a while. But do we have any kind of numbers on this, or we just?
No.
First up,
Well, we have step one number. Step one number is
Yeah.
Step
move
one.
the fuel depot
That's $1 million.
off the island. I feel like it'll be.
First, and then get our bearings.
Right, even Scott admitted, they move equipment over there for hurricanes, so.
And
let's
above ground.
move- Let's move above ground fuel depot off the island as well for hurricane.
I agree,
right?
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's ask the administration to do some preliminary thinking so that we can put some kind of frame around this. It would take 4 years, it would take,
Right,
$5
yeah.
million. Here's the upside, oh, here's the downside. So it's not to be.
Because I would kind of need a plan before we move it out there, so I don't put the fuel depot somewhere that would
Right,
be.
exactly,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, so start drawing your big
So administration can come up with. a
safari
preliminary
picture.
Look at
Okay.
it, I'm going to call it plans. Something else, sketch of it.
Strategy.
Are we good? Can we move on?
Yep.
Are we good?
We're going to 560. Excuse me. Streets.
Streets has stayed pretty consistent on this budget. Our capital, we're kind of rolling some money from this year into next year because street sweepers got outrageous within a year's time, and we just ended up too short to buy it. So we've rolled that, placing the skid steer, and then one of the ST3, which is a large four-door truck, so that's the reason for the extra cost there.
Scott, on page 2, the paving and sidewalk repairs,
Yes, the,
educate us on how that program works. I know that we have a lot of sidewalks, but we have a lot of damage to sidewalks.
Right.
Which are trip and fall hazards to people.
yeah, that money is more for spot projects, kind of like you're talking about. Sometimes even if we do it in-house, we can pull the materials out of that budget.
Do we have a long-range plan, kind of like we do with parking, where we've identified areas and prioritized them?
I do. There's really, well, after my last evaluation, it could change in overnight, but right now we have small areas to be done. We don't have any large trip. If there's a large trip hazard, we get rid of that immediately, but
I know in the last year or two, you've addressed a lot of areas on west of Island Drive, near the end of the island. Still considerable places down there, and I just wondered,
yeah, we've got down there, there's some on Barbie that needs a little bit of repair, not bad. So yeah, like I say, I do have a,
Do you ever smooth over that swastika on 17th or 18th Street, wherever
oh
it
yeah,
was?
it's been completely replaced,
Somebody had a swastika in the,
scratched into the concrete.
some kids, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, while we were doing that, we did an entire long run of other issues that were there too. So.
How's our leaf truck doing? I know we had
Good.
some problems with it.
No, it's doing good.
Good.
If we can keep the leaf piles clear of
Yeah,
Logs.
unwanted debris.
yeah. And then the Greenway, I know we had appropriated money in this year's current budget for the Greenway. I see we spent a little bit, but not a lot. So is that requested amount carryover or in addition to? Give me an update on the Greenway there.
Well, on the Greenway, excuse me, the thing we're working on this year is mainly trying to get the sidewalks and everything built. Excuse me. So that's our main concern. The other part is not a carryover. That money goes away, but we're putting new money in here. We tried not to continue to carry money over for a project that hasn't been slated. So this would be new money. The other money would go back in the general fund, which, I mean, eventually will come back here. But it's something that right after we get the bidding process, which hopefully will be by the end of this month, then we can start phase 2 and go your way for the Greenway.
Okay, and we hope the Cape Fear RPO is hopeful that we'll get our scoring back for Oak Island transportation projects by the end of May. So, DOT's not the fastest party involved here. So if we can get the scoring back by the end of May, that would help us go out and get maybe some additional grant money or something to help add to that budget, so we can get that project done, so.
So we have $1 million from, allocated already from the Powell bill for street paving.
They ever get here, correct?
Correct.
Would you like to explain this one?
The Powell bill, that is our anticipated Powell bill revenue. So the expense is the same as the revenue side. And then per your discussion on the parking, the 35% was for paving. So we put the 35% estimated in there to add to the Powell bill funding for street paving. Now, that is council's discretion on that 35%, but we did exactly what you had addressed in the past, to do it to more paving.
So it's 35% of our
So
1.2 million.
we estimated $1 million
Yeah.
just for budget purposes. Then you have some council flexibility, but we stuck to your 50, 15, and 35% parking.
Interesting
We,
measure.
as a council, bifurcated the revenue, so part of it is dedicated to tax deduction or tax
50,
maintenance.
50%.
Part of it went into streets. Terry's comment on everybody heard that. If we make $2 million this year, we could rearrange the split, right? Remains to be seen. If we have a good Memorial Day, we'll be off and running.
No rain.
Scott, I want to come back to the sidewalk repair and about that, and some of the minor street repair that you do. Do you need to increase that budget, or is there enough money in there? Because it seems to me there's a lot of little tasks.
There are. I think our budget is fine for this. What would be nice is to find a good small contractor that I could do some of these, and that's been part of the struggle. We've got using a new guy to pave this new parking lot out here, so we'll see how he works out. He could be a possible use on that to supplement.
Seems as though finding paving contractors
It's a struggle.
Good business to get
is
into.
a needle in a haystack.
I've said it time and time again. Anybody else who want to start a little niche business opportunity, do a little boutique type paving operation, and there's work out there.
So I hear your answer this way, that if you could find a reliable small paving contractor and establish a relationship, in the outreach, you want to increase that number through every street you
Right.
possibly do it.
Yeah. Now, I've gotten some bright light from Highland Paving, the larger company that we do our municipal resurfacing for. I have spoke to them and had them estimate a section of street to repair the dips, and they were outrageous. I wouldn't even touch it. I mean, 2 blocks, they were wanting over $125,000.
And you do that in.
We do that in-house. Since we don't have an actual paver, it's not as clean of a job as it could be with a paver.
Yeah.
I'll make a note that if we find a contractor, we need to really bump this budget and attack this problem.
Yes.
Right now, we don't have one.
Maybe this will get televised and somebody will see it and say, hey.
I know we have a roller that we picked up
Yes,
not too long ago.
correct.
In my opinion, it's undersized, but I'm not the expert. Is it working out for us, or do we need to look at maybe trading it in for a little bit larger roller?
For what we do, it's plenty.
Okay.
It gives us the compaction we need.
Okay.
When some of these patches are a little ripply or so, that's from the raking, and it's not really the roller thing. It's sometimes, you have to have a certain eye for that to rake it out in large areas, and we're getting there.
Hey, Scott, the alleyway survey work of $20,000, talk about that if you can.
That is having them all resurveyed, so we'll have all our property lines there, so we can begin to start to improve them once we have everything staked out.
If you ride through there right now, you'll see the alleyway sort of goes this way.
Oh, absolutely.
By the commercial corridor. We went back and tried to find irons or anything, we couldn't find anything. So the survey work will identify, like Scott said, so we can go back in and plow in place.
Now, is there a plan to improve those?
Well, I mean, we're going ready to stone those. You got Hallie and them working on a business corridor, looking for a golf cart, parking, thoroughfares, mapping, and she's working on that. And that's what council approved last year, was to start looking at the alleyways to incorporate them into the downtown plan.
Are we looking to use those as a thoroughfare?
Yes. For golf carts or something like that.
I like that idea, it keeps them off Oak Island Drive.
But if you've ever tried to drive from where the alleyways begin to where they end, it's not apparent that there's
No.
connectivity.
No.
It's not apparent on any consistency with the condition of the alleyway. Some are better than others. There's no consistency on what we truly own from the width of the alleyway. You know, some people are encroaching in there. So this overall, I think we called it the traffic corridor study or something. We approved last year this study to look at the alleyways from a surfacing, improvement, connectivity, obtaining the true width that we own and have access to. And the intent was to not necessarily mandate that certain vehicular traffic use it, but at least it's available for people to access it. It runs parallel to Oak Island Drive. So it's an alternative to facilitating access to those businesses, parking, moving off of, because Oak Island Drive at times during peak summer days can get backed up and congested. So this would just give an alternative.
Now, would it be golf carts only, or car traffic?
I'd tell you right this minute, I can't tell you, but it looks like golf carts would work better. There will be delivery trucks that deliver in that area, because that's what they currently do. People's commercial trash cans or dumpsters are down the alleyway. Some of them on the other end, the 60, around some of the restaurants on the other end actually have their dumpsters off of the alleyway. So we'd have to go back and look at that and make sure whatever's safe.
Scott, do you have a timeline for that survey work?
I've already got the company that we're using. In fact, I've gotten a couple already done out of our current budget, so they have started on it.
Scott, you got Davis Canal bulkhead.
Mhm.
I know last year we talked about intercoastal bulkhead over on Yacht Drive. I get calls regularly about 16th Street. Is there nothing in the works for intercoastal?
Yes,
Yacht Drive?
there's bulkheads in multiple budgets, so,
That's on to be addressed this year,
yes.
but not in the budget yet.
Not in this particular one. I think there's,
It was last year, for current year.
right,
But you got money in combination tax and
Yes.
sand tax
It's
and
also-
other places that those bulkheads are taken care of.
That's one of the areas where I hope we'll develop comprehensive plan, because I think as Mark found out when he did it in Shoreline, CAMA's not necessarily in favor of bulkheads.
That's correct.
And they have the potential to increase erosion, so hope we don't spend too much before we figure out if that's the best plan.
$570.
All right, 570, this is our operations division. Nothing really huge in this other than some replacement equipment. We need to replace our mosquito sprayers, both of them. They're kind of at their lifespan. And then we have a Ford tractor with a large boom mower on it that we use on a lot of these canals to get to the other side to cut them. And another old piece of equipment needs changing. We do have some money in here for more Moby mats for our ADA compliance.
I know the Elks bought us some Moby mat, contributed a couple, two or four one time. Wonder if we could hit up some of these.
We've had, they did one, and then the Beach Preservation Society also did one.
I got a thank you email from someone on 69th Street. I asked you and David about a couple of things, so I'll pass on the thank you. Throw in mine.
Sure.
Yeah. The mats are a very positive, value-added addition, so.
Frank Williams, Commissioner, sent me an email yesterday morning. Somebody called him, wanted to take their grandmother to a Brunswick County beach, but she is handicapped, and Frank didn't know anywhere she could go. And I wrote back to him that we have multiple Moby mats up and down our beach.
And we've gotten our CAMA permits, so we can extend them.
20 feet.
20 feet.
Beyond what we do now.
So the ones that we're putting in now or next year will again have to apply for new CAMA permits for those, whatever we add, to add that extra footage. And hopefully they keep that change, that they modified their ordinance to allow that. Because about every 3 years, they go back and have you remove them, and then 3 years later, they allow them to go back. So we'll see if they keep on that trend.
I know, I think it was last year I asked about putting like a T or some sort of landing zone at the end for people to be able to turn around and come off the beach. Do we ever get any feedback on our ability to add a larger kind of landing zone at the end?
We applied for everything that we could
Yeah.
apply for, and they allowed us to extend ours 20 feet.
Because that was one thing I like about a couple of years ago when I visited Savannah, Georgia. Not only do they have the mats, but at the end of the mat, they're allowed to put a larger square
Oh, yeah.
T, whatever, so,
South Carolina, you can do,
yeah, so.
Virginia, you can do it. And we can. There is one thing that you see, the new crossover, we put some money in there for Southwest 6, something that council had looked at 3 years ago, I think it was. There was some kind of discussion during the retreat, talking about maybe trying to get some kind of crossover in the west end. We met with Representative Miller and asked for some funds for this. So that is one of the things that hopefully he'll be seeking. So we put half the money in there, and then if he can get the $500,000 on his side, then that would pay for a portion of it. I think the last bid we came in 4 years ago was right around the 1 million mark, so I'm probably around 1.3 or 1.35 now, probably. But we wanted to get something in front of you so you can see that we were looking at that. If it's something that council still wants to consider, it's in here. Yeah, if you want to discuss it or whatever you'd like to do, feel free to.
Okay, the location to be verified, do you have a high degree of positivity that Southwest 6 would?
We had an engineer come in and look at different access points to do lines of travel to see what the best one was to do. And When I typed this up yesterday, that's my note for me to verify that location, but I think it was 6, and on the other side it's 9.
Right.
So
Right, it's not a-
It's weird how the street sort of line
Right.
up, and it's for me to verify that, to go back and pull that, EB, was the engineer of record that did that for us, back, I think it was 4 years ago.
I'm asked about this on a fairly regular basis, particularly from folks on the west end. When are we gonna get a walk-up, when are we gonna, so I like that it's on there and that we're seeking money for it.
And if we don't get it this year from Representative Miller, it's, council would at least have a base to start something with.
That is to replace that crossover.
No, this is to place a new
Brand
one.
new
This is
one.
new one.
Yeah.
Remember, we've been talking about this for 2 years and just haven't been able to get any traction because the ones on the east side needed so much repair
9th and 20th.
that they were taking all of the budget just to get those repaired and safe to traverse.
But now
So
we got a
now
good
we're,
price.
yeah, now we're moving to the west and taking a look at it.
God bless us.
So,
Do we have an estimated cost?
2 years, or 3 years ago, it came in right around $1 million mark. That's why I say it's probably
So that's what
1
we're
point,
asking Miller.
1.3 or.
Right.
Yes.
Well, if he would pay for all of it, we would be willing to
We asked-
name it
we
after
asked
him.
for all of it.
Yeah, we,
Right? Representative Miller
Charlie Miller
Walkway.
crossover.
You know, we asked for all of it,
short session.
but it's a short session, so we don't know, they only have so much money to delegate out this time.
Right.
If they came back to us and said, would you be considered, we would be considered of whatever.
Reagan gets the terminal, Miller gets the crossover.
Yeah. So,
$20,000 for Moby Mat. How many Moby Mats would that get us?
Depends on the length we buy, that's, I can get 50 feet for about $3,000.
Ooh,
Yes, it's not cheap.
Before we leave this, at one point, I'm going to say, each of the last 2 years, we asked Mr. Eads to give us a definitive statement about our ADA obligations, to review them, because there were recurring issues even with the Moby Mats. I would like Mr. Eads to produce that document, because it seems to me, A, we should be in full compliance, and secondly, it is, if you will, a shield that we can hold up and say, yeah, we review this annually, our attorney does, and we're well aware of the law. In fact, we're exceeding the compliance requirements, and here's what we're doing. I think we need that document, and if we can get Ryan moving on that.
Catherine's writing that down.
Captured.
Right? Because that is the kind of thing that is fraught with all kinds of litigation. And we did have a resident who's appearing regularly at our meetings saying, hey, you guys are not in compliance, or what about this? I would like to say, but we just completed our comprehensive review with our attorney, and in fact, here's what we're doing. So,
Scott, I have one question on the replacement mosquito sprayers. Are those be considered like universal, no matter who spray or what spray we use?
Yes.
They're gonna-
Yes.
Brunswick electric street lights. Changing out all of our street lights?
It's just the electric bill.
Oh, that's just the bill.
Just to keep the lights on.
Yep.
Oh, we need the lights on. Yeah.
Have we looked at a strategy for lighting to go with, more lights that have a much longer longevity than the sodium lights?
BEMC, as they change them out, they're going with the LED type, but as far as them doing a total comprehensive replacement.
So when they
not that I know.
replace one of our lights now, they're replacing it with an LED?
The line item's just still called sodium.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have,
It was that back in 1987, so it's stayed that way.
Another cleanup.
while we're dreaming about infrastructure, right, which eventually needs to get on paper, thank you, Catherine. We talked about this 3 years ago. We had a citizen group come forward, and rightly so, said, hey, I'm driving around here at night, it's dangerous, you can't see the road. What do you do? So then I think we went to the EMC and said, can we we upgrade these? And they said, sure, you need, the number was several $1 million to change out these lights. I point that out because if we're gonna get serious about some of these things, we need to commit, and we need to phase in, because I don't think we have $2 million to throw at lighting all at once. So we need to phase these in, especially apparently at the west end, it's extremely dangerous. Just a thought.
For us,
A new operations center, right, moving fuel tank, lights, we're not done.
Well, in the town of Harrisburg, when I was on council there, the timing fell into place where DOT was replacing lights along their maintained road. But of course, their idea of lighting is like what we have, the really tall poles. And it's just at a higher altitude, I'll call it. So we came in and asked if we could supplement their effort to replace those lights with lower level lighting, which did improve visibility when you bring down the altitude of the pole. And then, so we were able to throw in some money. I think there was some grant money at the time too that helped us. And it was a more decorative. So the lower level lighting was a more decorative, aesthetic, kind of fit in with the theme of we were building a new town hall, those kind of things. So I would encourage us to, I call it streetscape, which encompasses a wide range of projects, but one of those would be lighting. If we would consider some lower level lighting to help with visibility, but it needs to be something a little more decorative because all of a sudden it becomes in your line of sight versus the really tall poles that kind of fade into the background.
That's an option. Rather than trying to replace all these lights, we
Right.
could upgrade them.
Yeah.
Both for safety first and foremost, and then aesthetically. But again, we need commitment, and it's a multi-year project. We've talked about it for a while, and this is, for my new colleagues, a recurring kind of problem. People come in and complain, we identify the problem, and we just have so many needs, we don't fund it. So, lighting, crossover, the operations center, fuel transfer, we already have 4 huge projects just this morning.
And believe it or not, just one more thing.
One more.
Getting the money to install the lights was the easy part. Paying the electric bill going forward was a little more challenging. But
While we're on items about visibility, a lot of the street signs have lost their luminescence, and you can't see, if you know the island, you know about where you are, but if you don't, you can't see which street you're at until well, sometimes you can't even see it when you read it.
I'm adding it to my list.
Now, backing up a little bit in the street budget, we did increase the supplies for that very reason, to replace some of these that have lost their reflectivity.
And are we still looking at larger, no LSV signs? I know a year ago, we put money in to install the signs that say, hey, you can't drive beyond this point in the road. But then I had asked, is there any way to get those larger? And I think you said, yeah, we can order larger ones. So
Sure.
Is that something that is in here too, to order larger signs that say no LSV traffic?
It would, they wouldn't be so expensive, it would just be rolled into our supplies budget.
And they're working on the map now for the LSVs, and once we get all that finalized, because next, when Matt comes back, then they're gonna ride it in low-speed vehicles and see what the time, they're gonna start timing some routes to see what they can put on the maps.
Oh, good.
And then once they get that established, the problem is trying to get people to Food Line. You come up 58th
Yeah.
Street, and they gotta get on the main road to get a Food Line.
Right.
Or we go approach the people to see if we can get an easement in between two pieces of property, 10 foot and 10 foot, to put a low-speed vehicle. People love to drive them. It'd be a good way to get out of Food Line to go the other way too. So we would have to talk to them to see if we can get an easement, put a roadway through or something to get the people to that point. That's our problem. is Food Line.
Right, yeah. Because I think the signs had an impact. I mean, yeah, sure, there were still golf carts in the 45-mile-an-hour zone, but not as many. Initially, they were taking the sidewalk. I think we fixed that. So yeah, I think the signs have made a difference. So if they were just maybe bigger, we'd catch that last group of people that, I guess, can't see the sign as they drive by it. So,
Do our police just warn them when they're down there on 12th and 18th Street and everything?
They would usually warn it the first time, but if that person, which is seldom, is seen the second time, they ticket it. And if they're, I mean, when they stop something like that, they're looking at everything, the child seat, the seat belts, everything else, not just driving on the sidewalk. I mean, we watched them have to come pick people up out here because they don't have the people strapped in and those kind of things. So I know the police is enforcing it. Do they catch everyone? No, sir.
Oh, no.
And when they call and say, hey, we just saw one riding, by the time we get there, they're wherever they're going. But no, we do multiple checks on those people.
David, with the cameras that we have installed at Middleton and Oak Island Drive, and I would tell you, we see in an average weekend, we probably see a dozen or 2 dozen LSVs that are making a left onto Middleton or making a right onto Oak Island, or a left on Oak Island Drive. But we have cameras there. Is it within our authority to issue tickets to LSVs?
I don't believe so. I asked that question when we were installing them. And right now, our cameras that we are utilizing is for sort of recall and see if somebody is missing or if they go this way or those kind of things. We do have 3 different cameras that can zoom in on, not really zoomed in, but have the ability to, they're aimed at the license tags more than the cars. So we can see those kind of things, but I don't believe we can write a ticket. When I asked that before, we could not go back and write a ticket for something that we saw on camera for the violation. For moving a vehicle.
yeah, Charlotte's red light camera, they had it up and running for a little while, then someone took them to court and they lost. So they all got turned off. So,
Yeah, I think that's on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
yeah.
Wilmington got $25.
Northern Virginia.
There's an attorney in Wilmington that's asking for someone to challenge it because he thinks it's unconstitutional as well.
They sent me my picture on Oleander Drive. Here's my car, there's the red light, there's my car. I sent them a check, yeah.
Were you smiling on the picture there?
I didn't even remember that day.
But we'll ask Chief Morris.
It just, if we have the technology, and it's within our authority to do that, and that would go to the owner of the golf cart, which typically is a LSV rental company, and it's an opportunity for them to continue to reinforce with those that are that rent from them. They're doing their best now, but
We'll ask the question.
Before we leave signage, can you ask Mr. Miller if he could use his considerable influence to see if DOT will let us put signage in front of the new and old bridge? Welcome to Oak Island. You're now entering paradise, or whatever. We need a visual. Thank you for visiting Oak Island on the other side, something. And I know it's a state road, but perhaps he can.
Well, we can't, right now, we can put a sign coming off the Yopon end, if we come that way. We can place a sign sort of where the preserves is, on the right-hand side. We asked if we could put it in the median in the middle, we were denied. We were asked if we could put it in front of the airport, we were denied. But that area right there where the preserves is, in that triangle there, we are allowed to put it there. On the other end, when we talked about putting the sign on the other end, due to the if we wanted to put one at the entrance to the town at the 211 and Midway, we have to wait till after construction. If we want to put something near the bridge, then we're going to have to petition them for a specific location, and it would have to be outside of the narrative of St. James where they have theirs, and then we could put something further down. They would be glad to put a green sign that says Oak Island, but it wouldn't say welcome or anything like that. We can ask those questions again. 2 years ago when we asked it, that was the direction that we were given. So you can design a sign right now at the foot of the bridge on the east end, but it needs to go in that median to the right.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to belabor this. I'll say this. Every town in America, seemingly, except for Oak Island, has an attractive, aesthetically pleasing sign that says welcome. So there has to be a way to do this. And maybe we need Miller to shove these people, you know, DOT being DOT, but
I was just going to ask a question in the interim. Is it possible to program that message onto our two portable signs?
No, ma'am.
That's not,
It is, has to be highway-related traffic.
Try that.
We push it sort of right, we're in right now by advertising our golf cart ordinance. We had something on there before, and they shut us down for 3 months
Okay, that's
because
good.
we had violated it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be highway-related.
Folks have asked me about that. Letting me know.
I will say that in other local governments, I've been involved in a welcome to paradise type signage. Historically, we've had good luck in turning those into Eagle Scout projects. So I don't know if scouting is big in this area. It was big in the Charlotte region. But that's also an option. At least the labor is donated because it's a scouts project and the town just provides materials and the design. But then the scout themselves actually do all the construction and then they get credit as their Eagle Scout project.
great idea.
I mean, we took pictures of Laurenburg, Lumberton, driving down 74.
Okay, yeah.
Showed DOT what we were looking at doing, and they said, fine, you can put it right here. And so we can do it, because that's what it is.
Laurenburg lumber, that's a big brick sign, isn't it?
They are, well, now, it looks like it's brick, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Everything has to be tattered, everything has to be able to withstand 35-mile-an-hour pollution. Trees, those kind of things, and kind of landscaping, there's certain requirements about that too. But, I mean, it can be done. Y'all can start a program now for the design.
All right, let's move.
Take them back Friday.
We're ready to move on.
Well, we already have a town logo. Obviously, that's got to go on the sign.
Yeah.
So,
want to add some design money to get that started? Is that what I'm hearing? Or I'll
Where are
add
we
it to
going,
the
Mr.
list.
Keller?
We are going, well, we're done here. We're now going to stormwater, or we're going to solid waste?
Take your pick. We're done with the general fund of Scott's. He also has several enterprise fund pieces.
Solid waste.
Move on to 35,580. Is it solid waste?
35580?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And before we get started, Buffett asked to have Green for Life, Sunoco, and then come make a presentation. Annette has been hounding them. Green for Life is our vendor. They are willing to come in May. They cannot get Sunoco to agree to that. Green for Life said they would be glad to come answer the questions on their side. They cannot answer questions that are operational of Sunoco, but they can answer questions that they pick up this, they pick up that, and take it here, and it goes there. But as far as the process, what Sunoco does with it to start with and end with, they can't answer those questions.
Sunoco won't come?
They won't come in May, or they won't come at all?
They, so far, have said they are not coming. And Canet is contacting them every week. And so Green for Life said they have no problem coming discussing their operations.
Can Green for Life put a little bit of pressure on them?
They're the ones asking.
A lot of pressure?
Yeah. We're not, they are the ones, it's their vendors, so.
So when we ask the questions about what % of the recyclable stuff goes to the regular dump or what goes to the recycle, Green for Life will pass on that.
No, Green for Life, I mean, it's in their truck. So they should be able to answer some of those questions. The process of what's being recycled, they may be able to answer some of those. They haven't really given us a scenario of what they will or can or cannot answer. If they said operational side of Sunoco, they can't answer that. But
At $675 a month or whatever it is we pay, someone told me citizens are paying $900,000. Is that an accurate figure annually?
I think it's in the right here.
I read it myself. I'm a pretty good reader.
We're getting ready to go through that. and we got a few
But even if we
things
could
to
just get,
Full
even just GFL, that probably gave it a good start.
Yeah.
And that there's some questions they can't answer, then maybe we can push those to Sunoco and have them see if
So
they
that'll be at your main meeting.
Okay,
They're
thank you.
coming.
Thanks for that.
When we had them here before. y'all
We
might
did?
remember,
Yeah.
Did?
It got a little testy.
They promised the stickers for the cans in there we gave to.
Well, unless things have dramatically changed, and I have to allow for the fact they may have, but what they did the last time is they took on the argument that it was all going to the dump. And they said, okay, here are the actual numbers, right? And they had video and reports, and so that number was around 85%, which people who are pro-recycling thought, oh my God, it's not 95, and other people felt, it can't be that high, you know, so it managed to dissatisfy everybody at the same time, which is real genius. They talked a lot about market factors. At that point, the Chinese stopped, this was 2 years ago, they stopped buying plastic, so the price went down. So they tried to find vendors within the continental United States. And it was difficult, it was, you know, they made less money and so on and so forth. So they'll give you all of that. I don't think we had Sunoco last time.
Yeah, they were the ones.
They were the second ones, yeah. Okay, well, hopefully they'll change their mind.
Yeah, there was 4 of them, I think 3 of them were Sunoco and 1 was Greenville last time.
Well, and I think what was important last time, or at least what I felt was important in the presentation and the data that was presented, is to John's point, you know, the number didn't satisfy or dissatisfy a broad audience. Some wanted a higher number, others were challenging if it truly was that much material. The bigger story that came out of that was contamination. And the only way to resolve contamination is education. We must continue, if we're going to offer recycling services through our abilities, rather than putting it on the backs of the residents need to learn the significance of cleaning the recyclables so they don't contaminate. Because my understanding is if there was contamination, it's not isolated to, oh, this one item is now contaminated, I gotta throw it out. That contamination reaches a broader diameter of what it touched or may have touched in the truck. And therefore, a larger percentage of that recyclable all has to be sent to the landfill because of a potential contamination. So education is what I took away from that, is very important
But in
to
our
make sure
town,
that we're not contaminating the loads.
It's more complex in our town because we have, instead of 10,000 residents, we have
Exactly.
50,000 tourists
Right.
who could care less.
Yeah.
And for 4 months, 50,000 tourists are just throwing stuff everywhere. Nobody's cleaned out a Heinz ketchup bottle.
Nope. And that is a big part of our problem, right?
And so because of that, we're just paying for a whole bunch of stuff to go to the dump.
Sure, any other, thank you, Mark, that really was the key takeaway. The other option we talked about, which really got people going, is some towns have multiple stages of recycling. You know, from New Jersey, I have 3 different recycling things. They took it seriously, you find.
If you didn't follow it. That would be another option. This will be an interesting exercise. The last time, the mayor was an opponent of recycling, and so he produced a video of Thailand with plastic bottles floating and argued that was evidence. So it got crazy quickly. Bill's right. Our problem is not just our residents. Our residents can be educated, and most of them, from what I can tell, want recycling. They don't want to look like New York City in a garbage strike. Tourists, however, that's a real problem. We would need the rental agencies to really help us and the owners of the properties, because they just throw S in the street. It's
Well,
it's
they
the
find
reality
some
of
air
that.
conditioning running and the windows open, they could care less about it.
It might be interesting, though, per your point, Bill, see if,
We can get it from them. I'm willing to bet our recycling rate is considerably higher for residents. If we took the tourist season out, put it over here, our numbers are probably pretty good. Most people are pretty conscientious. But then you put 50,000 tourists here. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a fun discussion.
And when people talk about it, you know, some people say, oh, do away with recycling. Well, that's the easy part, say, no more blue polycarts. But when you take 5 blue polycarts away from a rental house, now they only have the 5 gray, they got more garbage than the 5 gray, so then we have to implement it where now you need 10 gray instead of 5. So it's a whole thing that we would have to look at to be able to make sure that we can quantify the amount of garbage these people produce.
That goes to show that when they overflow their 5 gray carts, they just start throwing into their blue carts.
The Green for Life has told us they're not going to get into the itemization of billing on the island if we're too large of a customer base. That's why we have it. And it's a pass-through, where it should be, if you want it, we would contact them.
I don't want to get us stalled here, but, so, from my perspective, I said it last time, I'll say it again, we have a moral and a legal obligation to provide recycling, period, end of story. The other thing that came up was fascinating, right? So the opponents of recycling said, wow, I want to save the $9, this is really important to me. And if you want to recycle, Bill, you can drive to the dump every week. I can assure you that's not going to happen. That is not happening. First of all, I don't know where the dump is, and they are not recycling. And then you drive by these rental houses in July, and they're literally, what is that, shit thrown in the street? Literally. Yeah. Right? No one is going to recycle. They're not going to the dump.
And even the tourists that are conscientious are not educated. They put it all in a big old plastic bag, which means it goes to the dump instead of the recycling.
They recycle pizza boxes, and it goes on and on. All right, just keeping this list.
Just wanted to share that with y'all.
It'll be interesting.
Basically, what you have in this department is yard waste, which we started a fee for last year. We knew that we were going to have some capital expenditures coming in the future. And what I believe we did last year is beneficial because now we're not purchasing anything, a leaf truck or a grapple truck this year, but we do have funds where we can put back for the expenditure next year when it's planned to be done with the capital plan, where you'll have the dollars to do that without, so we're not increasing rates, increasing rates. The rate that we build in is adequately sufficient to operate the solid waste program. Even with the increases, I believe you're going to see that there was a 10% increase and then a 12% increase. Get back to page 4. You'll start to see, Catherine got the increases from Green for Life, and it's roughly a 10% increase. So we built that in here. We've also built a 12.5% increase in for the other line item, which is on page 5. And that's our in-house number for our tub grinding. We saw an increase through the volume that we had, and he gets rid of it for us as well. So that was an increase through that line item.
Excuse me, what is that tub grind?
It's where you bring all the, well, would you like to tell us?
No.
You work for that.
Busting at the seams.
No, they take your debris and grind it and repurpose it for a biomass fuel that's a coal alternative. How's that?
And we do
Layman's
keep,
term, take your limbs and grind it up into little pieces.
And
we keep some
we
too.
get
That's-
paid for
That's
that?
the free mulch
No,
we
we
put out at
pay
50
for
seconds.
that.
That's where that comes from, the tub grinding.
I was the CFO for a company that did that.
Yes, we do. We're not, but we do, yes. And we have to do it because our permit only allows us to store up to 30,000 cubic yards. So we can do that in several months, so we have to get it off-site.
Did we, I refresh my memory, there was not a billing issue in regards to the amounts, but there was a billing description, like a line item description issue when we added yard waste fees. Did we, and I thought it had something to do with we're converting to another system, and there was some billing or what the invoice allowed and things like that. Did we ever reconcile that so we can have a more detailed line item description?
Yep.
Okay.
So that was the previous financial software,
Okay.
Tyler problem. And we've just converted, so we're
Okay.
working to clean all that up.
Because when I get my bill, I just look at the amount, I don't look at the line item detail.
It'll be better.
You'll see in solid waste, even with the increases within those three line items, and putting money back into the capital reserve fund, it does balance.
A few questions, just for my information only. Under household refuse services, the second summer pickup on the beach side, does the entirety of the municipality pay for that, or just those properties?
Just those buckets.
And same thing, if you have more than one can, you pay additional for cans?
And rentals especially are required, depending on how many bedrooms they have. Shows how many cars they have today.
Okay.
They usually have like 5 out there.
Annette gets, when the CO's issued, she gets the number of bedrooms, but then she has to set up an account with Greenville Light. And Greenville Light, once they drop the cans off, we're notified of the new building stuff.
Make sure I understand these numbers properly. So household refuse services picking up the gray poly carts, 425,000. And then household recycling services, the blue carts, and that's 800,000. Is that right?
You got that exactly right.
Okay, so a service that we receive every other week is twice as expensive as a service that we get every week.
The recycling, yes.
Recycling's expensive.
It's because they have to sort. So our program is just throw everything in the bin, right? Like John was saying, there's other municipalities that require you to separate, like the resident separates, right? All your glass here, all your cardboard here, all your plastics here. We have the benefit of just throw it all in there. And there's pros and cons to that, right? We can debate that. But then they have to do all the sorting at their facilities.
And their contract is up at the end of this year, I believe, end of 2024.
In January, or end of December, yes, sir.
Why are the people pay for this, the residents pay for this? Why does it show up here as a $797,000 expense?
You have to put in the expense, and you put in the revenue on the other side.
I ask that question every week.
It's okay.
I'm going to ask it again Tuesday. But that is money that our residents have paid, $797,000 for recycling.
Any other questions for you? And like I said, you putting money back for next year's, is it a lead truck or grapple truck?
Gravel.
Grapple truck.
Divide 9,900 people into that number.
Yeah.
Gives you the household.
Or 4,000 houses, whatever it is, yeah.
I'm all for getting an additional recycling and getting serious about it, finding these tourists and so on and so forth. Right? We should go the other way.
I don't even know if Greenville Light does that.
So having lived in New Jersey, I look at the recycling bins my parents had. It was colored glass, clear glass, plastic, newspaper, leaves, but no grass. And then grass. And it was like the front of the house, looked like a garbage dump every week.
Well, and I saw last year, and it likely was probably even prior to that, just as an add-on comment to Terry's question about the twice a week pickup on the ocean front, there's even now a concierge service in Oak Island that will roll your trash bins out for you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
She charges by how many bedrooms are in the house.
Oh, does she? Well, it makes sense because that
She
equates.
uses the same
to how
formula
many-
that
how
we
many
use.
I
cans
don't know
you
what
have.
her setup is, but it's not just one set fee for any house. How many bedrooms do you have?
you're $100 a year, you're $212 a year. I think she makes a pretty good living with it. So, in May, if we're gonna talk about that, that's a no-winning conversation. It's gonna be, everybody's gonna have their opinion, it's gonna get that we're gonna get accomplished.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
As long as we stand right behind you then.
Yeah. We gotta get our heads wrapped around where we are.
All right, so we're going backwards in the book now, we're going to 32,562. No, you gotta go forwards, I reckon I should have said. Forward. The 32,562, this is stormwater. And with Rick's departure, we met with Steve yesterday and Scott to try to start working out a few things within this. This is where we're at right this moment. If anything changes in further discussions, we're still discussing staffing situation that we had. We had put in for another stormwater permit inspector. Rick was doing trees, so now we have no tree person. So we talked yesterday about maybe the new position should be tree oriented. So we'd have somebody doing that. They would be doing trees and plan reviews on that side. So it's still in here in the budget for that inspection person. But for titles and jobs kind of things right this moment, I'm not sure how it's going to lay out. By the time we get to Steve's budget next week, we should have everything finalized on what we're doing internally. So if there's any changes in stormwater, we will go back to it when Steve was here to point that out. If you start looking there on page 1, you'll see where we've separated, we'll have 2 departments working inside this budget. So you'll see, like on overtime, just so that's the first one that has it, you'll see Public Works, Stormwater Maintenance. That would be Scott's people that Scott has doing the outside maintenance work. Did you find it, Terry?
Is there actually page 1? Mine starts on page 2.
Yes, there's your page 1. Should have my page 1.
I already wrote them.
But you'll see, that's where things start separate. We're going to have 2 departments working in this budget. So you'll see Public Works, Stormwater Maintenance, like I said, that'll be Scott's people. So he'll have money within that line item. And what I've done is I've tried to go back and separate all these to reflect that. And then you'd have Development Services, Stormwater, and the admin side of it would be in that department or line item as well. Not all line items are that way, but the ones that reflect that, I've noted in the budget. So you should be able to see those. But like I said, as we go through and start working a little bit more detail, we may make one little change. And if we do make one change, then we will go back, and when we get to Steve's budget, we'll go back over this again. But right now, we're trying to look at the tree part of this to try to figure out how to implement this going forward. We said, do we need to bring in a forester or arborist or whatever we would like to call the position? We had one before, years ago. So if that's something that we believe or council believes that's what we need to be looking at, then we have the time and ability to be able to work that into this year's budget. But it's just, y'all be thinking about that as well, because I know the policies and services, whatever y'all think that we need to go forward with. If we don't do that, then the person that we would hire, we would ask for that person to have a background related to that. So there's other ways that we can look at doing this, but just wanted to bring that to your attention that we weren't really prepared for that, but we're working, trying to make sure we can cover everything.
With Rick being gone, who talks to the builder tomorrow that wants to build a new house?
Well, Rick's still here right this morning.
Oh, okay. So after he leaves next
So
time.
after he leaves, Bryce was hired more for stormwater. And so that's where we're at with that. Steve will probably be the one who gets sort of stuck with that right this moment. And Scott may be stuck with some of it as well, field stuff, and Steve would be office stuff. We've still got to work through that, and in between all these meetings, we're gonna set up some time to talk about those. Yes, sir.
I'd like to digress because we're in meeting 3. Just, Catherine, give us a quick comment. So one of our major drivers is the retirement program and insurance. What kind of increases did we see there this year?
Your property and liability was about an 18% increase. That was pretty big. The Elders, the state retirement system, was a 2 or 3% increase. That is a planned, known expenditure increase, and workers' comp was not significant. We're in the renewal process at this moment, so I don't anticipate that being large, but that hasn't been finalized.
And what CPI factor are we using?
3.2, based on CPIU. Off the top of my head, that's pretty good.
Yeah, is that 18% increase, is that overwhelming?
No, it's baked into your numbers. We've accommodated for that. But it is a driving factor in the overall increase in the budget.
And what's comprised of the 18%?
That's all of our property and liability insurance. We get it through the interlocal risk management through the League of Municipalities.
Right. So customarily, and I think you probably will have it in your budget presentation, we put up the pie chart. So the drivers are easy to see. You start with salaries, insurance, retirement, so on. Capital, and you can get a picture of where the dollars really are. Because residents ask that all the time. How do you get the 13 million? Well, it is. So that's really not that bad. Some liability, property insurance, for wind and weather went up 30, 40%. Obscenely increase.
So next week, we'll be presenting back what other municipalities, and Bob had asked this before, other municipalities. Catherine went to a meeting the other day to see what other municipalities are doing for cost of living, merit, and those kind of things. And so she got to see a good picture of what Brunswick County townships are doing. I can't say that we are the bottom one, but we are near the bottom. And the other municipalities are doing more than what we are.
You want to digress into that? Yes, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our neighbors in Brunswick County, and we just did an informal COLA merit market adjustment survey amongst the finance staff, and we did, based on the CPI 3.2 with a merit potential of 3%. We are definitely at the bottom quartile. So Leland, Calabash, Oak Island, Ocean Isle, Holden Beach, Bald Head, Southport, and St. James are all significantly more than that. Now, this is just staff at this point, of course, that has not been approved by any of their boards either. They're in the same discussion phase you all are, but we thought it might be helpful for everybody to know what staff has proposed in each of those jurisdictions.
And so we pulled pay grades and pay scales from not all of them haven't submitted, but we got 5 of them. And looking through that last night, we are above market with some of them. We are below market with some others. Some of our job descriptions or pay grades are the same. It doesn't really matter about the number. It's a dollar number. We may call ours a 17. They call theirs a 19. Whatever it is a dollar, it matters. Looking through that, fire is pretty much on with others. Police is probably, our current one is lower than others. You started looking at populations and customers and staff on some of these towns are small staff, so yes, they do pay more, but they have a smaller staff, but they have their property's worth just as much as ours is. So there's other things we have to look at. But going through that, We're a little bit hit and miss. I look at utility maintenance worker, I look at fire, I look at police, and we're sort of a saw-through kind of method. Looking at that, and I haven't really talked with Catherine this morning about it, but we are going to look through, we'll put everybody on a page and we'll see where everybody is in different pay grades. And then we'll look at the jobs by name, and then try to sort it through to match what the other ones that have submitted. Brunswick County gave us theirs last night. I haven't seen that yet. We'll be able to present something back to you to be able to look at that. We could pay someone to do the same thing, if that's what, council chose to do. They're gonna take the same numbers and the same sheets as what we're taking to compare. But I believe we can present something back to you in the next week or so to show you where Oak Island is compared to our other neighbors. That doesn't have anything to do with the sheet in front of you, but it's something that we may look at. We know the last 3 years we've done market adjustments. We didn't do the COLA part because we felt like we needed to bring the bottom people up to a higher level. But when we were doing 3 and 5%, other towns were doing 8, 10, and 12. So we weren't following, we were doing what was correct, but we were not doing it to the concept that they were doing. And that's where I believe we have fallen some behind. 12% increase for our population and ours, I mean, that's a significant hit. And it's a significant hit from this day forward. It's not something that's a one-time thing. So those are all kind of things that we'd have to look at. But we're going to give you something where you can at least sort of see it, to be able to see where everybody is, and we'll just do a spreadsheet to reflect that. And then council can give some direction on what they believe where we should go.
So 2 years ago, we kind of went really strong on trying to catch everybody up. But we've fallen behind that
We did what we
quickly
could do.
again.
We looked at COLA, we said COLA didn't work for us. We met with the department heads, talked to them, and they would have got, COLA would have given them the most money. All the department heads and everybody was in sync with what we were proposing, and we agreed that the bottom salaries needed to be brought up, the dollar should be spent down below. But we were doing the 5, 7, and 8, when other towns were doing 8, 10, and 12. So, but it's a competitive market, we all know that. But we are large, and we have to look at what we have across the board. We can't fall below, as you know, police, I think we've all talked about that. When you look at other municipalities, we know a number where we need to try to get to, but when we try to get to that, then I have all the staff that's already working here. Now I've compressed them, so now do you follow that same curve and move everybody? What we have seen, and what I talked to the chief about, is if you're in pay grade 19 and it's $50,000, what pay grade 19, whoever those people are, we would look at police would come in at pay grade 2 and 50, and there'd be a policy. So they would come in at 51,000 instead of the 50,000. But then if they had 1 to 3 years experience, then they would come in at 53,000. And go ahead and establish that, so we don't have to keep looking at this to try to be competitive. And then you would just change that one number, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, in your policy. And it'd be an internal policy that Catherine would administer, but that would give police the ability to bring somebody in besides the higher salary, and it'd already be established, and you would know what that is.
So this is a very rich and productive conversation. We argued during the period of hyperinflation that we used Fed's index, which is not the CPI, it's lower. It's actually not due to rate. So that mechanical adjustment can be problematic. Right? So you're looking at 3.2 and 3, you're already at 6% across the board, and yet we're below the norm group. But the other side of that is our taxes are relatively speaking lower. We have not increased taxes, right? So Leland is high, but Leland has 35% tax increase on the table. So the question of sustainability comes in too. How do we attract and maintain quality employees? And the other side of that is how much can we afford to pay? And are we going to have a structured tax increase over the next several years to get the employees we need, keep the ones that we have to have, and provide for infrastructure. So it's a complicated question, and I'm glad you guys are, the administration is bringing forward data. But at the end of the day, we need
a philosophy that we can support as a council. And I'm not opposed to looking at this from a tiered perspective. I've said this before. If, as a school executive, trying to hire physics teachers, I couldn't find any. I had to pay more, just because I have to teach physics, right? The union didn't like it, but that's just the reality of that market, right? We have a similar problem, I think, with police. 5 vacancies, we're not able to get people here. We need to make an adjustment there. So, lots of questions. Thank you for bringing the data forward. It'll be very interesting to
Along
see.
those same
Lines, hopefully Scott's answer is no, we haven't been losing people because of pay to other towns necessarily in your department.
No, sir.
It's mainly, I mean, for that, it's usually development services, building inspections. I mean, Brunswick County offers a chunk of change. But luckily, the staff has been pretty loyal in their state. They could go to the county and the county has vacancies. And then the police department is the other one. The county's getting ready to hire utilities because they're taking on Southport. Southport's only transferring, I think, 3 people. So they're gonna have about 9 positions that's gonna open up next year in utilities. And I don't know the Brunswick County number. I know where we're at, and I believe in utilities, we're pretty stable with everybody. Well, some of the towns only have small operating. Most of the county's taking over the small towns, so they'll have 1 or 2 people still in the department. But, so we're pretty good on the utility side. And we had looked at going to some kind of a minimum wage for the town, and say the minimum wage should be X. I don't know what it is right this minute, pay grade 13, but that's something else we could look at and go from there. But we give all the part-time people, we raised their salaries last year. We raised people up to the same pay as what other people were making before. Rec department could bring somebody in from $12 to $18. And so now we've streamlined that where it's a process where we know what people are coming in at. So the part-time people, we worked out the last 2 years, and then the COLA, whatever we're doing, we're adding that into that schedule soon. So it's moving in a small percentage. But I think a good review by Catherine and I to look through it and put it on a spreadsheet so everybody can see the numbers across the board. I think that'll work out.
Be helpful. I would request that you add benefits as well.
We'll have to contact the other communities and get that part.
But it matters.
After we looked at the police, we all
Very
belong to the
similar.
state. Everything's pretty much the same across the board on benefits because we all belong to the same group of insurance.
Okay. Just wanted to be certain.
But we'll make sure of that. I don't think anybody went independently.
No, but the 401K might have some
I
very,
mean, I said this before, in this particular world of financing an organization with taxpayer money, different than a private, it's taxpayer money. There are some strategies that can be employed. So, for example, if we had a much better longevity system, right, that would be a way to attract employees. If we had more generous leave, right, for sick leave or return. So those are strategies where instead of throwing that the salary guide, you put it into the benefit structure.
401K is one we'd have to look at because everybody's different on 401K.
Okay, but maybe, depends on how our 401K is structured, right?
We're probably pretty high.
Yeah, I know, but I know our participation rate is not 100%.
No.
Not everybody understands.
We can't make,
we don't match.
we
No, we put it in.
matched it. I appreciate it.
So this warrants a discussion just solely about salary guide and pension improvement, that the whole session could be about.
Yeah.
Because that's
Well,
going to
but-
drive your tax rate.
You know, last year as well, though, we did one-time bonus, right? that's not factored into their base pay.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. 'Cause
2
we
years
looked-
ago.
We looked at the tax rate, and we looked at where we were going, and we couldn't afford it.
Right.
So we said, at least we'll give them half. So we divided it.
Right.
Like 55, 45, or something like that. But we gave them a one-time check, and then, because the burden on the other side was,
Yeah. Was that,
That's correct.
was that received favorably with staff when we did that?
they were very thankful for the dollars. And they were thankful for that one-time check right at that moment. And most of them, like the chief said, it's all about the dollars now. Some of them are here to work 30 years, but most of them aren't anymore. They're here to work a time frame until something in their life changes, and then they're willing to go somewhere else. So it used to be, like John was saying, it was all the benefits and everything tied in, longevity things, insurance when you retire, blah, blah, blah. But now it seems like what's in front of you right this moment. So bonus checks are good. I'm positive they believe that it is a number that carries for them for life, I mean, whatever the salary is. So the dollars on that would have been more beneficial to them, but I don't know if that's, it's hard to say right this moment. They're looking at money. All right, we'll bring that back to it. But this is, like I said, this is a divided budget. Catherine will have to figure out the PO system, however it's gonna work. Either they're gonna go through Connect to get it so she can regulate the money, because like I said, it is split dollars that you see. Some of the money in there, you'll see that there's in uniforms on 3710. You want to do this? Sorry.
You're doing just fine.
You'll see that there's a new position that was requested, so the 620, if it's not accepted, then these dollars come back out of these line items, so that would be reductions. So we did try to separate everything that we could. The maintenance of the system still stays with Scott. Those kind of things, it's pretty self-explanatory. Drainage projects would still be with Scott. The Phase 2 or Coral Street, that's where you see on 5440. That is the part where we just got the grant for, 596, I believe it was. And then the tree planting, the grant will go through Steve, because that's the way we had it set up prior. Scott's basically outdoor maintenance and those kind of things. Scott will be involved with the project, the pay request, inspections and daily activities will go through Steve's department. The planting of the live oak trees will now be from Scott for the maintenance part. Scott's the one who planted them anyway. So Scott will be in charge of that one. Contracted services, the engineering. Last year, the grant preparation, we applied for 2 different grants. We applied for the brick grant, and we applied for the Golden Leaf. We got the Golden Leaf. So we had about $40,000 spent trying to get all these different grants. Could have paid off in the long run for the dollars that we got. Legal services is going to be on for W.K. Dixon on here as well. We have to obtain some easements this time for this project, so that'll be a process that we have to go through for those easements. There'll be some legal services, and then we'll need some easements for Phase 3, and we'll have to get those prior to the project. So that's why you see the dollar amount of the $170,000 in that line item. It's more than just engineering for Coral Street, and administrative services and those kind of.
Mr. Kelly, can we, at some point, not today, I'd like to see the consolidated line item for legal services for Mr. Pease. I want to know what that is.
John, we went through that
Admin.
in admin.
Oh, actually in theirs, council.
Did I miss that? Okay, I'll find it.
And it's in, it's
120.
in yours, town council. We discussed it, it went up. We looked at what, if we RFP'd it come July, went ahead and added some dollar figures from the 175 to the 225 hourly rate. Those kind of things.
I was at 125, and you all discussed us increasing it to 175.
Thank you.
That's still kind of low. Hourly rate?
No,
225?
that's total dollar amount, $175,000.
David and Scott, on the tree planting, how much have we spent to date on the tree removal and new trees in the corridor?
That would just been, that should have been just regular operational hourly stuff. I don't know if we would have spent dollars to remove trees.
No, that was all just out of my operational budget, just labor.
And the cost of the new trees?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we can ask. I know this time we've applied for a grant for this, to plant 200 trees, right? The one the mayor signed the other day. 200 trees over 3 years, over a 3-year period. So, but I'll have to find out. I think we spent
I wanna say it was
$20,000 this
$20,000.
year on the trees as well.
That sounds right.
Okay.
That's right, it's in the budget.
The question I was working up to was, if we don't get the grant or a portion of that grant, what will the $20,000, how many trees will that buy us? How much further can we take this project? And what's the estimate to completion?
When we get them all, we plant them all in that week. I do know that.
The last batch we planted in a day,
Oh,
so,
one day.
yep. In fact, in about 6 hours, we
How
had them
many
all.
trees, Brad?
Let's say,
Sorry.
47?
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say 50, but
And we had budgeted 20 live oaks at 3-inch DBH for 10,000. So it may have gone up a little bit, but that was current year's estimate.
And how many phases or years, if you will it take us to complete getting the tree down and getting a streetscape planted?
Rick said he had a plan for that. He hasn't given it to us yet, but he has all that written down.
Okay, so that's a better question for him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get the information for you and give it back to you, yes.
In this printout, stormwater fees residential, is that just new house building? $831,000?
That's where you have a stormwater fee in your,
On my bill?
yes. And
One flat out,
commercial,
look real
commercial
close.
has a stormwater, you must be looking at it.
So that's on my utility bill?
Yes, sir.
I need to look closer.
$7.04 on mine.
It's square footage based, isn't it? Isn't the bill?
it is.
That stormwater review, what is item number 37, 32,300?
So that-
25,000.
That is the,
Line item?
what page you're on?
Page 8, I'm sorry, third item.
That is the new permitting and for commercial properties or new development, when they submit. 2 years ago, we started charging for these services instead of providing these services for free. And that is the revenue that's collected for that. When they come in and they're gonna build and they have this much impervious surface or whatever, that there's a calculation that's on the survey that they have to look at and then go back and verify. But some of the inspections are written up into the review charges is also the inspections that's provided for that review.
Commercial and residential, or just
Both, commercial and residential. Then the re-inspection fees, we didn't put any dollars there. Nothing has come there so far this year. I don't know if it's being keyed wrong. Right now, it's going into developed services dollars, but we have to sort of verify that with the new software to make sure things are coded and goes back into the stormwater fund.
Are we going to be done with the cutover by the end of this fiscal year?
The
for the new
finance?
system, like for everybody?
The end of the one we're in right now, or
Uh-huh.
this one?
No, the one we're in right now.
Should-
The current financial software, or you mean the changeover to the new software?
Yeah, the cutover to all the new systems that we.
Yeah, so we have just gone live with the second part of finance, which is downstairs utility billing and tax collection. Next is development services. That's the only one, I believe, that is left. We've done rec.
Scott's PO system's already in
Yeah, I think
The
development
only question
services is the
was
last piece,
what
and
about
they
a
are
work order system, whether it's
supposed to
going to have a
be
work order component or
very
not.
soon.
Okay.
I don't know.
There's a data conversion issue in the IT side. I understand. But yes, intent is this year.
there. One thing to take away from this is, like I said, we are still trying to figure out with Rick's leaving, how we're gonna work this. If council believes that we need to have more direction on trees or something, we need y'all's opinion on that. Or do we need a part-time person for those kind of things? I don't think it's a full-time thing. Maybe more of a part-time, or do we look at the position that we're bringing in to assist with stormwater permits, reviews, and inspections? Do we work something out with that person? But Bryce, we brought him in basically for stormwater. Now we're sort of giving him trees, and he really doesn't, he's not a tree person.
I hope with the emphasis that we put on our chapter 32 revisions with the heritage trees and the permitting process and the flexibility that's built into the UDO to allow shifting of structures, I'm hopeful that you see benefit in getting somebody with that expertise. It may not be easy to find, but I think getting the certification is also an option. I don't think getting the training and the certification is an onerous thing. But I think it's important to our town to have someone who can help take care of the town's trees and be knowledgeable on pruning and care. At the same time, be able to adequately assess tree removal permits in terms of disease, damage, things like that, and whether that tree should remain or could come down. So I hope that'll be taken into consideration. If we can't find the person up front, we at least provide a mechanism for them to be trained and certified.
I think that more so than an arborist, we need. I took comfort when we were kicking around chapter 32. If somebody wanted to build a swimming pool or the tree was too close to something, Rick would go out there and form an opinion if they could cut it down or not. So we need somebody to form that opinion if they can, where they stand. That's going to be a dilemma if we don't have that. I think we're thinking two people.
Well, we have two people. I mean, we have a stormwater administrator person, and then we had the stormwater inspector person. And we were going through the budget, we hadn't finished chapter 32 yet, so, or starting the budget. So we can always look at repositioning that person. But it is something that, we've already had a few calls saying, we've seen Mrs. Smith cutting a tree down. We've seen Mr. Jackson cut a tree down. Somebody pruned a branch, and those kind of things. So we're going to send people out there. So it's just, when we get there, it's usually nothing to it. But we still got to go investigate it.
And many of our neighboring municipalities have arborist services on staff. I don't know if they contract them out. Is there an opportunity to job share if it's not a full-time job? Is it possible to contract out to a tree company with a certified arborist? Be on contracted services, and then you have a development person who can do the on-the-ground stuff.
Go a long way.
Tree-specific
He's
stuff.
retired.
Look we can look at that too. That may be the easier way to go about it. You don't-
That'd accomplish a lot if that could happen.
But if we could find a service being provided,
Southport VSL.
they wouldn't probably go that day, but they would look at it within the next 48 hours or something like that. And they could go to look and see what was done or what could be done.
And I think the way our UDO is set up, it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't require expertise to say, the town will allow you to shift your structure 25% of the encroach, or of the separation distance, if it'll help you save this tree, for example. I mean, that seems like that's pretty much in the development wheelhouse.
Yeah, Matt and Steve will still do that.
No, we'll look at it that way too. And we may ask Scott to contact you and see if somebody would be interested in that.
Well, and contracted services get us out of the compounded issue of continuing to add people to the payroll, where we just heard now we may be falling behind and it's going to be very expensive to play catch up. Well, if we can contract out more services and not introduce these people as full-time staff or even part-time staff on our payroll, we save ourselves in the future of having to worry about that service now being caught up in this merit increase. Oh, we're ranked, 7 out of 10 and all that kind of stuff. Right?
Outsourcing is a long-standing.
Exactly, right,
And that would probably work better because we don't know the volume this year anyway.
right.
We don't know what we're going to get hit with.
Typically, you'd start there, and if you had a need, you bring it in-house, or if you were dissatisfied with the quality, but with options. The last item here is the transfer from the general fund. It's before we leave this.
Yes, sorry, I had already switched, but I know what you're referring to, 570. That is the grant money that is anticipated to come in from Golden Leaf. We just don't know the timing. It may come in current year, in which case it'll just roll to fund balance and I'll reappropriate it in that line right there.
So,
The ARP funds, is that the last of it, 70,000?
No, the ARP funds is in stormwater.
we're transferring $70,000, if I remember right.
Well, it was way more than that.
I think that was balance for the project for phase 2.
Oh. Yep, that's all that is necessary to balance the fund. All right.
That's the balance. We didn't get the total amount for the cost of Coral Street. So that 70,000 is the balance of it to complete that project. And later you'll see an ARP fund budget, and you'll see how many dollars and what it's.
Dave, how many additional accounts do we have?
Today,
Yeah.
to go over.
Golf.
Oh,
You want to take a break, or you want to go straight through?
it's a 5-minute one.
Okay.
But to go back to the contracted services, for this one, I'll probably talk to Steve about this, and we may be eliminating, if we do that contract service, then we'll probably eliminate the other stormwater inspector or plan review person. And then it would stay just with the stormwater administrator. They wouldn't have trees, so then they would be able to spend more time on that. So I believe we could probably do away with that position.
We can take a 5-minute stretch for it.
Okay.
Austin Alfonso just walked down the hallway. I don't know if you need him.
Nah. Oak Island Par 3 maintenance, I think it's all together, 38501. 38501. And Scott, I'm gonna quit talking.
Okay. Let's see, you'll see some increases in our chemicals fertilizer. There are some increases throughout this because the way we're progressing on the golf course, I think we need to keep that path because so far it's been fairly positive. Supplies have gone up, and it's going to cover a new sprinkler head, some sod for the greens, bunker sand. Let's see, equipment-wise, where's that at in here? Capital outlay. Biggest thing you're going to see is a Groundsmaster 4300 tractor. That's going to replace an existing. And what that gives us is the old one we have is rated for about 4 acres an hour. The new one will give us 6.5 acres per hour. So we'll be more efficient with it. And it's got some, the mowing decks have more of a, I don't know, leveling, springing, so we're not scalping heels and stuff. So it not only does it do it faster, it does it better.
Scotty, it will sell the old one with the existing one,
Yeah, we would put it on Gov Deals and sell it. And then the only other thing you see in capital, which could have been rolled into supplies because it's only $3,300, but it is replacing the irrigation pump in the pond, which waters our greens and aerates the pond at the same time. And it's attractive.
At one point, I think it's off of number 1 and number 2, there was some mud bunkers that at one point had water in them. Have they returned to being a water hazard, or are they still a mud hazard?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'm assuming it has returned to its original design is what I would say.
Mr. Chulo, you were marking that rounds have increased.
Yeah, they're up about 40% year-over-year in the number of rounds and in revenue. And I'm beginning to work on a kind of a financial plan, looking at 5-year projection. At some point, though, you're going to hit the capacity on a number of rounds. I just don't know what that is. So I'm looking for
Thank you for working so assiduously on that. The reason I ask is it sounds like we're doubling down here. We're buying new motors, fertilizer. I'm hoping that will be offset, at least in part, by revenue from the round. Is that reasonable, Catherine? And we're in a fiscal budget.
So, Scott, this is the third year of a capital improvement plan. This is the last year of the capital improvement plan, according to the superintendent.
Correct.
So they had kind of a 3-year plan, I guess. And this big piece of equipment was the last of the capital improvement. Going forward, we're not going to have, we can't strip that out.
What's the increase in this budget line?
Last year, we had $115,000 in the capital outlay. This year, we reduced it down to 80/30. There's 2 parts to this budget. So if you want to go to the next one, then we can give you the bottom line.
Okay, I'll wait for the bottom line.
Or Catherine can jump straight to the bottom line. I don't care.
20% increase in revenues on green space.
How much?
20% is approximately 100,000, and we increased it to 120,000 estimated revenues based on the increase in play.
Okay, so it does offset part of it,
Somewhat,
but not all.
But we still had to give them $350,000.
correct.
Which is a lot.
So much will depend on the fickle nature of golfers and the financial plan coming from the committee, more rounds of play, right? No further major capital increase. The picture theoretically is better
Well,
in 2 years.
to your point, what I'd like to see is we're done with capital in this last upcoming fiscal year
We bit the
budget.
bullet.
Rounds have increased, revenue is increasing. So we should return to levels that we saw back in 2021, 2022 timeframe. in my mind, that's a goal. Our goal should be returning to previous year lower level contribution to fund that golf course.
Next year
If we
to
can't-
run the park.
If we can't return to prior year's supplement of transferring from the general fund, then all of this work was to no avail. We invested capital in equipment, we're putting more money and investing in improvements, rounds have increased, but yet if they come back and ask for the same level of funding, in my mind, it's not working.
Right. Bear in mind, though, the last statement that Bob made is critical. There is a max capacity to the number of rounds you can produce. We just don't know what that is.
But they're not
At
there.
some point, you can't get any
Right.
more revenue.
Exactly.
Unless
Yeah.
you raise.
Unless you raise fees.
And then they're going to come back to us, the superintendent committee going to come back to us and request an increase in green fees.
And of course, if you can get more annual membership enrollment, there's no guarantee that those members play as many rounds as visitors play. So that's another goal, is to increase membership out there.
Talking of membership, I don't know if it's today's discussion or another one, but I thought it'd be a moneymaker if they gave discounted fees to Oak Island or South Harbor memberships, annual memberships. Just like I'd be one of those guys that buy, just like buying a parking pass. My wife buys a parking pass, she'll never use it.
Yeah, and that's the
They
exact
have
point.
those.
If you can incentivize more membership enrollment, because it's likely those people may not play as many rounds as visitors or guests play rounds, then,
Yeah.
right,
But
it's worth, sometimes
that's
it's
ready
worth
money.
some sort of discount.
That's money up
to
front.
drive membership, right.
And the two new Part 3 committee members that we voted on the other night, they're both members, and they live in South Harbor.
Yeah.
So they're very vested in getting meetings in a good way.
Okay. Well, I think that's a reasonable goal.
Yeah. Next year's numbers will look better because no more capital outlay. Everything considered, Scott, you're about as happy, it is where it is, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's come a long way.
Jonathan, I mean, he really, I played back in the day when it was, when the Golden Breeds got shot.
And the greens were
And it was
a
just
sand trap.
It was a cow pasture. And what he has done, what his team has done for you.
Absolutely.
Kudos to you.
Been a good asset.
And I've often said, when you talk about par 3 costing us money, and I hate that anything costs us money, every park we have costs us money. Middleton Park, you spend a lot of time on keeping Middleton.
Yep.
I'm not opposed to a park costing us money, I like the lower cost.
Yeah, 350 is a lot.
350 is a lot.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, I know we're still several years away from satisfying the agreement of us managing that course, but a future council is going to have to make that decision. And I do feel some obligation to deliver the best possible playable golf course to a future council. So at that time, they have more options on the table rather than feeling like all they have to do is renew and keep maintaining the course.
Well, aren't they generating income out from disc golf? Thought they had some little deal going on.
There was a tournament there, I think, last year.
Nothing.
Right.
Big.
Because, we have a separate disc golf course at the other park off the Fish Factory. So, I had kicked around the idea of permanently installing disc golf at the par 3 because someone could then show up and say, I want to play around using my clubs, or I want to play around using my disc. But I don't know, that may not be attractive for the intent of the par 3 course.
It's really not aesthetically attractive.
Right.
Real golfers.
The problem with tournaments is it's really not set up to stage where it's a tournament. But I like your point about incentivizing people to be members. Couple that with your idea, Bill, give residents a discount, get them to be members.
Get the money from the bank, and they show up, they show up.
An annual cost. And then alcohol sales would be huge. I know, David, you've got that data. But if we can potentially be selling wine and beer at There's so many golfers that are out there, they bring coolers. And they throw it on a cart, or they have it in their walking cart.
You gotta sell that to the HOA.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge there.
The HOA's got, they've given us a release of liability statement, which legal has to review.
That's
That
exciting.
would really help.
It's a long way from where we were.
Yeah, our attorney has that under his review.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Oh, never mind.
We're not gonna make enough money on a PAL.
No.
To raise fee homes to a certain level, we can only have so many rounds, so that's the reality of this. But the goal that you.
19th hole sounds good.
That's good. Are we done?
No, we have the clubhouse, which is the second part of that. The only change in that is, we doubled the advertisement, dollars from 2,000 to 4,000. When we were going to ask Bob if he thought that was an appropriate number, or working with him, did it need to be something that was 38,738,3,200, it's page 7, is the top line item. So we doubled it, whatever y'all would like us to put in there.
That's what they asked for.
In terms of advertising, I know you can get third parties to survey or give you a score. It'd be really nice if we could find someone to put together a flyer that says, Oak Island Par 3 ranked in the top 50 Par 3 courses in the state of North Carolina, or something like that. Some little
Yeah.
feather in your hat that suggests that it's been reviewed, it's been played, someone is
Fastest
prepared
growing.
to give a score to it and give us a rating or something like that. Can we get anything like that going?
Where would they advertise? Southport newspaper or golf
Well,
magazine?
we had a guy that was on the board before that did something through Google. And he periodically, he'll send the latest numbers.
Yeah.
And it's how many times the site's been clicked on, it's how many plays, how many, and then people will send back their ratings or comments and things like that. Google Antics or something, I forgot what it was really called, but, and he's just been doing that in sort of self.
Yeah.
He used to be on the committee, then he moved, then he came back, but.
Because
I don't know if
I've
y'all
seen
been-
other golf courses, even Par 3s, on their sign, it'll say, rated #1 most challenging
Yeah.
Par 3 in the state or something like that. Some little feather in our hat that says, either it's challenging or it's,
Why don't you write something up and we'll put it up there?
We'll put it right on the sign.
According to Bill Kraft. Bill Kraft, 4th rated state golf course in the state, according to Bill Kraft.
#1 kid-friendly
Right behind
Par 3 or
Pinehurst.
something like
Well,
that. I
two
mean,
things that, we can do, we've talked about it for a while. We've increased our advertising budget. We need to get a banner. We need to get the rental community
That's what I was going to say.
push the golf course. And, I'm going back, 7 years when I was on the Par 3 committee, and we asked for that, and we couldn't get any cooperation from them, we couldn't get a banner, There's a lot of things that we can still do to maximize awareness, because 50,000 tourists are not going to bring their clubs unless they're aware that they can play here.
With this $4,000 advertising budget, 2 ideas to take back to your advisory board, Bob. If they could print up some flyers, 10% off, give it to Oak Island Accommodation, Margaret Rudd, Better Beach Rentals to put in their packet. Instead of asking them to do it, here is the stuff. I've already handed it to you. Here's 500 for you, Margaret Rudd. Here's 500 for you, Oak Island.
We need to enlist them,
Yeah.
because what...
They're not going to do any of the work, though. We got to do
No,
it
that's
for
what
them.
they said, it's work, we're not going to do it. It's like,
But if we do it for them, and then if they would team up with other Par 3 golf courses.
there aren't many to team up with.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
The other thing is the chamber. They do,
Very little for us, from my perspective. It's all about Southport. This is an area where the real relevance.
And I still think there's a way to incentivize people, using the 801 Center. You book a wedding, here's, 10% off of a round of golf or something, I mean.
Yeah.
For the wedding party, if they're coming in early or staying the night before, whatever their logistics are, get them to the golf course.
And also with beginning, Hallie's going to come to the next meeting and kind of talk about, because those businesses all want more visibility and become, whole sponsors, tournament sponsors, so a lot of them are interested.
And he could put flyers in his airport.
And we had whole sponsors and everything years ago.
Yeah, they've got 6 now.
Yeah, and we did the 10% discount, we gave them to the realtors, and we gave them to all those things.
It died. Yeah.
And more of them ended up in local people's hands trying to get the discounts. And then rain checks, and we had so many things discounting out of that funds that we stopped it all.
I hear you.
Because it had gotten, we were discounting everything.
Sounds good until
We
the
weren't making
scammers.
any money, but everybody, our play was up, revenue was down.
Yeah,
What else
scammers.
You know what else you can do, Bob? If
Becomes your
if
project.
you do get, if the HOA and our attorney and everyone agrees on a beer and wine, host an open course event. Let people come and see the course.
Stand around and drink a beer.
In-house.
Let them get in a golf cart and drive around. You can turn it into a real social event.
Golf cart,
And food trucks too, that's another thing that they're looking at. Joseph's is a big supporter out there, and get a couple of the, Friday night or Saturday night. I think it can generate some serious money.
Sounds like the advisory board's getting proactive. That's good too.
Yeah.
Agree.
And I would, John Brown, is such a
well,
such a
Yep.
drive.
No?
since you brought up golf carts, golf cart prices doubled.
I'm sorry?
The golf cart rental price is doubled. So you see the $22,000 in there were $10,000, and this year we spent between $1,000.
Oh,
Just
that's because of activity.
Oh, they got new ones.
Right.
It was a new lease.
yeah,
It's a new-
you have the lease that expired.
Well, we gotta find $22,000 to offset that.
We pay that if they sit there or somebody uses them. I'm good, I'm done now, sir. Oh, well, we're not done for the day. Catherine has one more thing.
Oh, I was just gonna kind of high level the golf course.
You're good.
I've sat through some of those meetings and a lot of great ideas generated. In general, it's $200,000 revenue. It's coming in now, current year, doing a pretty good job bringing in good revenue. You have a $350,000 subsidy. You take out the capital, which is not $100,000, you still have to make up $250,000. That is more than doubling the current entire revenue of the golf course. And that's the part that we have to determine, is that ever possible with the number of rounds available? So there might be a combination with the rate increases, but in the end, it's a park.
It's always gonna lose money.
Yeah, I think at some point it's determined, like the game of the end of mind, right? So what are we willing to tolerate as far as an annual subsidy? What is that number? We don't need to determine it now, but at some point we're going to need to determine that. Are we willing to commit $150,000 a year and really charge them with filling the gap?
Well, I think Catherine's analysis is sober. We're never going to make money. We've known that for a while. We've done on every side of this issue with prior council, actually the majority of it, at one point wanting to turn the golf course into a field. And then the residents screamed bloody murder because of their property values. And then we've been through multiple managers of the course. You know, we've been through discounts. So we're never going to make money on this course. We have an obligation to the residents, a legal obligation, if not a moral one, to keep it in good shape. I agree with Mark. We get to a tolerable level, and I don't know what that number is. It sounds like it's going to be more than 150, but less than 350. And we put the course in a position so that council of the future can try to sell it or outsource it if they so desire when the covenant expires.
But John, the other option is continue to put subsidizing. I mean, this is a municipal golf course, and I could not find one municipal golf course in the country that actually makes money It's just, it's an amenity. And we look at the amount of what that brings into the community. Are we getting back, we've got to settle on $150,000 to $200,000 annually. Are we getting $150,000 to $200,000 worth of revenue in other ways that helps to offset that?
We have a unique faction for courts. Oak Island, Country Club doesn't make money anymore. They make money on the restaurant. They don't make money on that golf course. Golf courses are a losing proposition.
Yep, all over the country.
If you're a golfer, they lose money. It's really hard unless you have an exclusive membership list and a course that's set apart from Mark's point, and you're gonna pay $10,000 to join it, pay annually, and you're gonna pay quarterly dinner fees, or whatever, right? So, we're never gonna have that, but we can, I think, get closer to a break-even point.
Yeah, when I say return to prior year subsidy levels, prior year subsidy levels have varied from 140 to 220, 240, right? So we're in that 150 to 250 range as a historical reference point for prior year subsidy. So, we'll never get to zero, right? We all know that. But what, to Bob's point, what's that range that supports a golf course that gives future council options to consider when the agreement expires, right? What is that comfortable range that continues to drive rounds and memberships, right? Because if the course falls off in as far as its playable condition,
We're still paying.
membership's going to drop, rounds are going to drop. I mean, we all know.
We're
how
still
the game works,
subsidizing.
Right, and we're still subsidizing. So we've got to find that happy place where the subsidies are supporting a playable, attractive recreation amenity, right? And the only thing that, in my mind, that makes this a little bit of a rub for us is, yes, there are other municipal golf courses throughout the country, and I've played on many of them. They're on municipal land. This golf course is smack dab in the middle of an HOA. It's not on a municipal property out in a field that the city decided to build a golf course. So that does make it a little more unique, and there's some sensitivity to that. That's why I said, at least from my point of view, we're at least obligated to provide something that a future council can make a good decision on what to do, whether it's renewing agreements, selling, whatever it is.
I agree with you, and I hear Bob, but I think at some point, we could take the position, council future could take the position, hey, we have 64 parks, we have an event center, we have 10 miles of beach, hopefully at that point, well, God willing, we have a new rec center, we have a municipal golf course, we have a lot of things, and we're willing to pay for them, we're willing to keep them in good standing, right? Because I know the Parks and Recs people want these parks improved, they haven't put any money there yet.
Well, the splash pad costs us money every year, I guess.
Yeah.
With water access,
Dog parks.
get down the list of
Yeah,
things
dog
that
park.
we
Church
have,
dog.
that nobody else has. That's the sell for the family.
So we just have to be financially feasible.
The whole spiel. right?
Does the advisory board need to bring back, if that's a good idea, on discounted annual memberships, or do we put that in our,
Yeah, I mean,
do we put that in our fee structure?
I think once the new committee members get seated, give them a couple of months, and then we'll put a plan together, let them deliver it at a council.
I did explain to them that they need to bring any fee changes back to the board. You all have to approve those
yeah.
changes.
'Cause I
They can't
don't
just do that.
anticipate, yeah, they're looking at, increasing fees. It's not going to be substantial. I can tell you that right now.
Well, they
It's not
can't
gonna-
afford to.
It's not going to move the needle. So if they don't come back to us until some later date with a whole new game plan, that's fine, right?
Well, I think I think annually now they're doing about 40,000 rounds. So if they increase it $2, and that's 80,000.
That's 80 grand.
Exactly.
I mean, that's,
And that doesn't hurt anybody's billfold,
That's
but 80,000,
yeah, people are not gonna talk about
That's right.
just pay for the mower.
Right, we just paid for the mower.
yeah.
Right.
Bill, people didn't want to pay $10 for a parking thing either, $2 maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
No, we can
we're
let
ready,
Scott
we're
go.
done with Scott.
Everybody okay with
Thanks,
Public
Scott.
Works?
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Scott.
A little mute button on there. So just in wrapping up for the day, in the few minutes we have left, we're trying to listen and gather all of the input and suggestions for improvements, and I'm trying to keep a general tally on that as we continue to move forward. But just want to bring to your attention a couple of the items that we've heard and concerns about the tax rate itself. If we were to add some of these things we've been discussing and we needed to consider a tax increase, what would that look like? So I have a chart to hand out. I'm sorry, I should have given this to everybody. It just shows everybody in Brunswick County. So this is a chart of, again, prior year historical and where we are for every community in Brunswick County and our comparable tax rates. And I thought that might be helpful so we see that we are quite low in our current rate at 16 cents.
You got a copy for everybody, or we're going to pass it around?
Sorry, I want to make sure I got the second page attached. Yes. The second page is just a worksheet and in some cases a refresher on what a 1 cent tax rate looks like, what that translates to our citizens. As we talked, a penny is roughly 657,000. And as I said, we're continuing to monitor the preliminary scrolls coming in from the county. That's where we are currently. 1 penny on the tax rate, and I did it to multiple house dollar values so that you can see the difference between a $100,000 house and a $1.5 million house. And then, of course, all the other fees that we do attach to our homeowners as well are listed there. So you can see the impact of the 16 cents, and you can also see in the right column what 1 additional penny would cost on each of those houses. And as you are discussing and deliberating, the house values or the buildable lots that are left available depends on what type of revenue will come into this town in the future. It's a substantial difference between a $500,000 house and a $2 million house in terms of revenue.
I know we haven't talked about fees yet, but do you have an idea of which of these fees you might need to increase or might have an increase?
Yep, so far we're holding steady. No fee increases anticipated. Slight fee schedule increases. I think there were a couple of rec fees and a couple of stormwater fees that need to be incorporated into the fee structure, but that is not a rate increase. I think we will be able to keep those level at all of our fee increases. We are even looking at, we haven't gotten to the water and sewer public utilities discussions yet, but we are looking at being able to try to lower that one, the sewer assessment fee.
So the sewer
that'd be
district
nice.
fee,
Yeah.
we said we would review that every 3 years. This is the year of review. We've also incorporated the next 3-year capital improvements for Middleton and the wastewater plants and those things. So we've looked at the dollars that the town's going to be spending over the next 3 years. You look at the growth that we have and the rates and those kind of things. Brunswick County finally, not finally, but they sent us their new wholesale sewer rate yesterday.
Yeah, some of them are flat.
So we're still verifying that to see
They're all
how that
variable.
works or
It'll take
goes
me some
through us.
time. I'll put that together.
The water rate should be coming next week, and then we'll be able to look at that. But sewer district fee, we lowered it 3 years ago, and we're looking at lowering that again, but we want to make sure that the debt payoff is something still out there to be made. And you have to look at the fund balances in those funds to be able to see what Catherine will be able to transfer over 4 years from now to be able to make sure everything works. But I think everything else that's laid out, the only one that we brought up last year that we may have to deal with will be yard waste, but it showed that we were pretty much on there. So I think everything else is fine. The only thing that we're adding into the budget right now is some positions and then the capital that we've already explained. But one of the positions Catherine already talked about, she could reduce downstairs, and then I think we can reduce the one zoning person, or not zoning tech, but the one on the stormwater side. So we're constantly, like we said, working through this draft budget to get to a number, but the mayor had asked a few questions about some tax rates and what it was on a penny and what it generates and how to calculate it out. So that's why Catherine gave you this sort of cheat sheet.
But the 6 additional firefighters, that's a separate discussion, correct?
So that's on the list of all the things I've been hearing you all discuss, and if we get an idea of the appetite of council to consider a 1-cent tax increase, we can add all of those 6 firefighters and the other things that you've mentioned together and see if we can balance it with a 1 penny increase. The other possibility, though, is still the ARPA funds, and with this substantial grant, I was just speaking with Mr. Cullo about that substantial grant frees up $500,000 for us to potentially use elsewhere in ARPA eligible expenses. So we'll go back and work on that.
That's not the one not the Golden Leaf we just
Yes.
got.
Yes.
Okay.
So what you look
gives
at
us
is you
some
look at
flexibility.
other operational expenses that you can utilize that toward, that still down the road, when you have these repeating costs, you're not affecting those repeating costs. Those are repeating costs. But the items that you're buying is something that you may be transferring fund balance or something for, that you wouldn't have to transfer the fund balance. So those dollars would still be in the reserves for a later date, but you're using some of the ARPA funds to pay for those items. Police, fire, stormwater, I mean, there's a list of things that you can actually
And
pay
the
for.
ARP funds, we have to encumber by the end of this
This
calendar.
year. Yes.
This week.
Yes.
So your balanced,
This calendar year.
so your balanced budget is not with the 6 additional firefighters or
At this point.
5 police officers?
That's
And no
correct.
tax.
And no tax increase?
That's correct.
So we've
We
talked
have
about 2
flexibility.
positions already that we could be possibly taking out of the budget. So now you may just be looking at 4. I mean, it's a working thing. And we'll keep you, as we go through this, we're tallying every day. So we're seeing what's happening, and so we can let you know when it gets pretty much a wash or something like that.
So every time we throw out an $80,000 salary to somebody, we're getting that much closer to affecting our tax rates going up.
Right.
We have other options too. They're not preferable necessarily. We could take money that we set aside from paid parking, we could transfer money from general fund.
Accommodation.
I mean, and I don't necessarily
Right.
agree with this, because I think there's some things that you have to pay for, but we're saying in terms of principle, we're not going to increase taxes this year. So that means that we either have to forego something or we have to transfer revenue from the other source. Right?
Yep, sharpen the pencil.
That's simple.
Yep. And also keep in mind too, Lee's growth schedule as far, in terms of staffing was 6-3, 6 now, 3 later,
Terry asked that
we
question.
might be able to flip that, Lee might be comfortable with 3-6 instead of 6-3, right? So, we could play with that a little bit too.
I think that it would be 3. I mean, 3.
3.
So what he presents you is the maximum standard number.
Right.
No one asked him what the minimum standard number is. But he gave you the maximum standard number.
And that's also in light of Pine Forest and becoming a satellite office, which may not happen in the next 12 months.
But no, that's right. Council, as John was laying out things behind him, that's another thing that's got to be laid out. But I believe the 3 skip a year, then 3 skip a year, then 3 is more of a realistic kind of thing going forward, because it's 3 to 4 years out before you have somewhere for the other people to be anyway. Having the 6, we all love to be 100% safe, but even 6 people doesn't make us 100% safe. So you have to look at things that we can incorporate to benefit the department. But I don't know if we just need to throw 6 at it to start with. And you have to look at it, just like you said, a schedule. And I think the 3, the skip and 3, skip and 3 would almost give you what you need in a timely manner for you to be able to decide where you want to build and what you want to build.
Right.
And to have the other apparatus that you're going to put the people on.
Right. And the
You-
budget already includes the second ocean rescue team, so it's not like we're having to
Yeah.
add that, that's already in at the current tax rate.
And Scott's expenses are already in.
Right, so,
So when you all bring us everything put together, it'll be with your talk of, you can do 3, 3, and 3, and
So
educate us
it's
along the
still,
way.
that's still up to council's decision to make 6 or whatever
Yeah.
council would like to do. We would probably have 2 different numbers for you. We would know what a 3 is, just so we would know, because we have to balance, or Catherine has to balance the budget. But we will know both those numbers,
Yeah.
just to be able to tell you both those numbers. But it's, at the end of the day, it's the council's choice if you would like to have the 6 now or the 3. I think either one would be, it's an improvement, and it's a step going forward, and lets the fire department and the staff know that you are making progress to get them to a point.
And we've been awfully good at fire department the last 2 budgets.
Well, this being my first year participating in this process, I've observed it for the last 2 years, and what I've observed is that for 2 years and continuing this year, the town is playing catch-up. We're playing catch-up for reasons because we grew, we're under new leadership with the fire department, we're under new leadership with the police department, and they've developed solid plans, we're under leadership with a new finance director. So, in some cases, I don't think we're padding the budget. I think we're really trying to get ourselves to where we ought to be. And it feels like it's been done, and we continue to try to do it in a very responsible way.
And plus, we're making more money each year. We have more revenue each year, thank goodness. So when we grow, so does the revenue.
yeah.
And the other thing you gotta look at is, the county's probably gonna do away with the fire fee. So council's going to have to look at doing a fire tax, and you're going to have to determine if you want the fire tax to be 100% tax and operational. And then you would look at setting a number for Lee, and you would give him a growth per year, and Lee would have to come back to you with an operating budget within those dollars. And then you'd still have to figure out what the capital expenditures, is it part of his, or is it part of y'all's and it becomes his, or there's still some things for you to work in the future.
Well, there's some other considerations too, for Terry's point. At one point, David, I think you identified a large capital investment we're going to need to make in the sewer system down the road. That's happening. The rec center, I think, based on what I hear from residents and what the community seems to be thinking about, it's going to be $10 to $15 million minimally, and that's probably going to be a bond, I would think, right? We need to think about that as well. And there probably are some other large-scale projects that you can see now that are actually undertaken. So even in the context of this budget, we should be thinking in the out years, right? I won't be here, but all of you
Music to
should be
your
thinking
ears.
about it, because it's coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're dealing with an antiquated tier house. We need to improve our capacity at the Middleton station. So,
Yeah. All those are out there. And I can guarantee you that unless something phenomenal happens and we continue to grow at the rate we've been growing, at some point you're going to have to raise taxes to fund that stuff. It's just inevitable. But for right now, I think we can get this budget in, hopefully with the complement of firefighters and everything we talked about. I'm very optimistic. Thank you for all the work. Please, thanks, Scott. Are we good?
I'm good.
We'll see you all tonight.
Oh, that's right, 6 o'clock tonight. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
The ayes have it.